So, how's it going, Andy? How you doing?
Good. It's rainy in Brooklyn today. It's a quiet day for me. I haven't had much to do today except a little bit of rehearsing and stuff like that, getting ready for the tour.
Yeah.
Preliminary packing.
Just the basics. Another day.
Well, on a typical day, every day sort of there's a typical day for different situations, but like a typical day for me the last month has been to get up and drink some coffee and then run the whole KMFDM set standing up in this room, and then go read for a while, teach some guitar lessons, come maybe go back to the set and go over some problem areas, getting my gear together and all that, getting my sounds together for the tour.
Yeah. I see.
It's fun stuff.
It looks like a nice little CD collection behind you there.
Yeah, I've got CDs behind me. I've got vinyl to my left, and I've got cassettes to my right. And in front of me, I've got, of course, all my digital audio.
I love it.
So I've got all the formats are represented here.
So, what was the first CD that you ever bought, or vinyl, or tape, for that matter, if you can remember?
First CD?
I could tell you.
Oh man, I actually don't remember. I don't remember what the first CD was. But the my first album that I owned in any format was Queen, The Game.
It's a good choice.
Which I had heard. I was in seventh grade, and we had a pep rally. Seventh grade was high school where I was going to school, so it was like grade 7 through 12 in one building. And we had a pep rally on a Friday afternoon, which I assume everybody has pep rallies in America, but outside of America, they might not know what it is. Do you know what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like...
How would you describe a pep rally?
It's kind of like, in a sense, almost like what the 4th of July is for America. It's like the pep rally is for the school, where like you're celebrating the school, and, like all the cheerleaders and all the sports and all the teams and all the clubs, like all kind of come together in school pride and, rah, rah kind of thing. Like, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it centers around a game that's going to happen that night, right?
Yeah. It's usually like a big football game or basketball game, whatever the school has or doesn't have, depends.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, this is a pep rally. I'd never been to a pep rally before. I was only 11 years old or something. But I was sitting there and just happy to be out of class. And all of a sudden, this rock band started playing. And I don't remember anything they played except for one song that just kind of stopped me dead in my seat. And I asked my friend next to me, I was like, what is this song? What is this? Who sings this? And he goes, oh, it's Queen. And it was Another One Bites the Dust. So I got turned on to Queen by way of a cover band playing it in a gymnasium, and it was probably the only song that sounded good in a gymnasium, honestly, because it's got such a spare groove and it's got so much space in it. It probably just everything else probably just sounded like a washy noise. I left school that day just being a completely changed person, and I got Queen the Game, and I got all of Queen's other albums, and then the floodgates were open, and I was just, my radar was up, and I was just hungry for all kinds of music with guitars, really.
So Queen started everything.
Absolutely
love it. For me, it was Def Leppard. Def Leppard.
Oh, which one?
Well, I mean, at the time, like Hysteria came out the same year I was born, so uh, my like all my first memories are just like Pyromania and Hysteria, and then eventually On Through the Night and High and Dry kind of trickled in, and I was just like obsessed. I was like, oh my god, this is incredible, and then like Scorpions and Van Halen and everything else. But like Def Leppard was always like the rock in my life, you know, like they were the first that made me love music. So yeah, like Def Leppard would be like
Yeah.
my queen in that sense, you know.
I love Def Leppard too. I mean, I discovered Def Leppard not long after I discovered Queen, and I absolutely adored those albums, like High and Dry and High and Dry especially,
Especially.
just because it's just the sheer amount of great riffs that are on that album. I mean, that they're like a real, they're very riff generous. You know,
Oh,
they
absolutely.
gave you a lot. They gave you a lot of riffs per song, and yeah, it's just such a great sounding record. But yeah, all those bands that you mentioned, that was my early stuff. You know, it was like metal and hard rock.
Love it. So how did you? Well, okay, but before we talk about the bigger bands, let's talk about like your first musical aspirations, your first little garage bands and projects and whatnot.
Are we recording, by the way?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. Well, my first musical aspirations were, you know, I was an air guitarist, so I was just happy to, you know, pretend I was a guitar player. And some friends and I had a little air guitar band. We actually used plastic toy guitars, and we called ourselves the Nomads. And we would just, I think we only performed 2 or 3 times, but we performed at church, believe it or not. And we would do like AC/DC and Queen and stuff like that, stuff that probably wasn't appropriate for church. Um, but anyway, so I had this hollow plastic guitar, and at some point, it started to smell really bad, and I realized that a mouse had crawled into the body of the guitar through one of the F holes and died.
Right.
So that was the end of that, and I started to make like cardboard guitars and guitars out of wood, and I would just draw in all the details and everything. So I was like taking air guitar to another level as far as having actual props that I could hold, you know, in front of the mirror, of course. And then one day I just happened to stumble on an actual guitar. It was an acoustic, kind of a banged up old forgotten acoustic guitar in my grandparents' closet. And I picked it up, and it immediately felt kind of natural to me to just understanding the direction of the notes going up if I moved my hand this way on the neck, and down if I went this way. And just, it was very easy for me to just piece together some very simple riffs. And I just thought, well, this could be cool. If this was, you know, if this was an electric guitar, I think this would sound awesome, what I'm doing right now.
Right.
So yeah, I took that guitar home, and eventually, you know, I talked my parents into buying me an electric guitar. And then once I had that, I was absolutely dead set on this path. And, you know, the garage band situation was pretty cool for me, because I met a couple other kids that were the same age, that were about as experienced as me, you know, maybe a few months into playing their instruments. One was a drummer, one was a bass player. They were brothers, so they lived conveniently in the same house. They had a basement, and yeah, we would go and jam there and play whatever heavy metal songs we could manage that were within our skill set. And yeah, that's kind of where it started. And I never, you know, being 15 or whatever I was when I had my first, when I first started playing electric guitar, I had no idea how I was going to be a musician for the rest of my life, but I just knew I was going to be one.
Right.
And then, you know, the nuts and bolts and like the reality of it, you learn as you go. But the main thing is just like this drive that there's no way I'm not going to be a musician. That's sort of like the guiding imperative, and then you figure out the details around that. And yeah, it's funny. It's fear based in a way. I'm terrified of having to stop being a musician and get a real job. And I have like recurring nightmares about this. So fear is a motivator.
Absolutely, it is. So what was your first kind of like long-term, more serious project?
Well, define long term. I mean, it seems like every band you get into when you're young, you think it's going to be forever, and then it ends up lasting 2 years or something or
Right.
less. Yeah, I don't know. I kicked around in Pennsylvania. I'm from Pennsylvania. That's where I was born and raised. I kicked around there playing in various bands for a few years, but I found myself in New York City on a few occasions to actually play gigs, and I just thought this is really where I ought to be. And I moved here, and I feel like the thing about being in New York is that you can actually play in many bands at the same time, and pretty much everybody does. So yeah, I'm trying to think now, like, what's the longest I ever had a band? Everything just comes and goes so quickly. Like, I feel like KMFDM might be the longest I've ever been in a band.
Yeah.
Because it's now been like 6.5 years or something. And even my band that I started in New York City, where it was, it was my passion project and it was my songs, and I brought in all the other members, and we had this really great thing going for about 6 years, I think, was where it kind of, we tapped out. And I think that was the longest running band situation I'd had up till then. So yeah, I think KMFDM might be the longest I've ever spent in one band.
Okay. And how did that come together of you joining the band?
Well, the short version of the story is KMFDM were due to play a North American tour in 2017. And about a week before the tour was about to begin, their stand-in guitarist, were a couple of German guys, lost their visa. Their visas were denied or something. So the band needed an American guitarist on very short notice. And so Sasha called his old friend Doug Wimbish, who is a legendary bass player. And he's a member of the band Living Colour, but he's done all kinds of things. He played on all the early New York hip hop records, and he played with Mick Jagger and Jeff Beck and all kinds of people. But anyway, so Doug Wimbish, was asked by Sasha if he knew of a guitar player who could do this gig. And Doug asked his bandmate, Vernon Reed, who's the guitarist of Living Colour, who's a good friend of mine. And Vernon just gave him my number. And then next thing I know, I'm talking to Sasha and Doug in a conference call. And I decided I was going to do the gig. And it was, I knew it was going to be a challenge. I only had a week to learn the material, and I had to, cancel a bunch of shows here in New York City. But I was ready to join a band like KMFDM that had kind of touring possibilities, and as well as recording prospects. So I just said, yeah, I'll do this. I think I can do this, and that's how it started. And then I learned the set. I crammed the set for a week, and then got on a plane and flew to Chicago and met with the rest of the band. And we did our first show there, a sold out show at the Metro. Mm-hmm. And we had no rehearsal. For reasons I won't get into, we were not able to practice together or even have really a proper sound check. So it was really nerve-wracking doing that first show. But we pulled it off, and it went over really well. And that was pretty much that was my trial by fire, introduction to KMFDM.
I'm glad that it's been working out so far. I'm sure it's probably opened up all kinds of other opportunities. You know, how did Blondie come along?
Well, Blondie is a separate thing. I would chalk that up to Blondie's a New York City band, and I've just become friendly with people in the band and people in the crew just from being around in New York City for years and years. So yeah, I honestly I was kind of expecting the phone call from Blondie at some point. I was expecting this call for years. And finally, it came in when Chris Stein, who's a founding member of the band, is their founding guitarist and songwriter. He decided he was going to retire from touring in 2021. And so Debbie Harry just texted me and said, "Hey, do you think you'd be interested in doing some Blondie shows?" I was already friendly with her, and she and I were already talking about doing something musically together, whether it was a solo project or something. Yeah, it was very, very casual like that. It was very informal, just a text. It was actually on New Year's Day on 2021. And I said, yeah, of course. And it was the opposite of KMFDM in the sense that I had plenty of time to learn the songs. Like we didn't play together until I think June of that year.
Yeah.
So we had already I already had songs to learn months in advance of that first show. And I was already friends with guys in the band, so I could get together with them and kind of hash things out. I got together with the other guitar player a couple of times. We worked out who's going to play what. And so it was sort of like the exact opposite of the high pressure cramming situation that was KMFDM. But yeah, it was all a very organic thing, like all these things are organic. I've never gotten any kind of gigs from like going on auditions or like cold calling band managers or anything like that. It all comes from some kind of a pre-existing personal connection or recommendation, or I know someone who knows someone.
Right.
So yeah, I sort of feel like, I realize that you can probably make some headway in the world as a musician just by putting yourself online. But I really believe that you have to go the extra mile and leave the house and play with other people and play in front of other people before these kind of personal connections happen where someone will feel confident about recommending you.
Right.
Because it's all about personality, really. Like I think Debbie Harry was like, I think she invited me to play with the band because she was comfortable with me because she liked me already as a person and she already knew I could play guitar. They could have held auditions and, sampled any number of like more schooled guitar players than me or whatever, but they don't want that. They want somebody that can hang, that just kind of has the right spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's how the Blondie thing happened. It was pretty, it was pretty expected, to be honest.
Yeah. Probably the easiest experience you've had so far then, as far as joining a band.
It was easy in every way because, the other aspect of it is that I, just walking into the first rehearsal, I already know 3 of the people in the band pretty well, if not very, very well. I know members of the crew. So I'm walking into a room where I see a lot of friendly faces. And it's a New York based band. So it's really kind of, it's a lower pressure situation, just going to the rehearsals and everything. I've done gigs where, KMFDM is one where I'm flying in and I'm meeting a whole group of people I've never met before. And we're just kind of hoping that it all works out. And luckily, that did work out. But you never know. You never know, the kind of mix of personalities might not be so harmonious, and um, you don't know what you're getting into sometimes when you do these blind agreements with people,
Yeah.
and you show up and you just hope for the best, and whatever problems there might be are only going to get exacerbated on tour, because everyone's living in each other's pockets, and so it's very compressed and pressurized, and problems just kind of get amplified by the touring environment, I think. So if you feel really comfortable and happy and relaxed around the people that you're with, and you love the music that you're playing, and you believe in it,
Best
then
case scenario.
I think touring is the best.
I love it.
Yeah.
So with KMFDM, like you just put out a new album. So how much are you able to contribute to KMFDM's music?
Well, quite a bit, really. It took, after that first tour, we started writing songs for the next album immediately, as soon as we got home. And so the first thing I realized, and I already knew this, but there's a great work ethic in this band. So if the band's not touring, it's working on new music. And that's something that really works for me, because I'm a very active music maker myself. I'm doing it every day. So yeah, I was invited to supply riffs, and it took a minute for me to get a feel for like the process, the songwriting process in this band, and it really comes down to ideas beginning with Sasha, and then by the time that idea gets sent to me, there's sort of like an arrangement that's kind of in place, and it sounds like it's got a vibe, and basically I'm allowed to contribute whatever I want to the track. Sometimes there will be riffs, some kind of like guitar riffs that are already in place, but they're represented by fake guitars, synthesizer guitars or whatever, and I'm expected to kind of replicate them on actual guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are other spaces where, Sasha says, come up with some new riff for this part, and then that's where the writing, the songwriting, co-writing aspect of it comes in. But I do all kinds of sneaky things as well, where I'll put like some kind of ambient harmony in the background that changes the harmonic content of a part, and that therefore changes the complexion of the song to the point where it warrants some kind of songwriting credit. But yeah, I think it's mostly the ideas begin with Sasha, and then I react, and I put a bunch of stuff down and send it back, and he pretty much includes whatever I send him. So it's been a really nice, I've generally got co-writing credit on the majority of the songs on the 3 albums that we've done together. So, and it's a negotiation, figuring out percentages and stuff like that, but it's pretty easy. Everyone's pretty chill. No one's really arguing about, percentage points or anything like that, because nobody makes money from their records anymore, as we all know.
Right.
Squabbling over couch change,
Pretty much. So I've spent a couple weeks in New York before myself. But if I was to come like next week, what would be a great food spot that you would suggest? Doesn't matter what kind of food.
A great food spot?
Yeah.
A great food spot. Well, it depends on what you're looking for, but I live in Brooklyn, and so I have my favorites that are in my local area. There's a place called Bunna, Bunna, which is all vegan Ethiopian cuisine.
Okay.
And it is fantastic. And they have live music in there, Ethiopian, authentic Ethiopian musicians playing on certain nights. I'm not sure every night, but yeah, that's in Bushwick, Brooklyn. Geez, I have my local things that I go to, but when I walk out the door on my block, I can get Thai food, Chinese food, Italian, Mexican, barbecue, although I don't eat meat, Hawaiian, French. There's a creperie a couple blocks away. I'm spoiled for food choices, but I think Bonnet Cafe is really, really special. I highly recommend that.
Yeah, so it's like a
And
whole
it's
experience.
reasonable as well.
It's cool.
It really is.
Having live Ethiopian music while you're eating. No, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, and really great cocktails. Really nice custom cocktails as well.
Sounds good. I will most definitely keep that in mind. So how long has your music career lasted so far? How long you've been doing this thing?
A very long time now. I've been doing this for 20 some years. I've been in New York for 20 some years. So I've been a full-time musician since 1996.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I sort of, I mentioned that I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I did have day jobs for a little bit when I was living there. But yeah, I quickly realized that was not going to make me happy. I couldn't see it's not just because I don't want to work a day job. It just killed me to push music into the margins of my life, the evenings and weekends kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't enough for me. I've got too much music in me. I have too much of a hunger for just getting better. And, so I need music to be my life every day and my livelihood. And that gives me freedom as well, because, I am my own boss and I can create my own schedule. And, I've spent many years being very poor. And I've got very few creature comforts. I have no dependents. I don't need much. I live in a modest apartment. So that I have that going for me. But yeah, I've definitely lived a pretty Spartan life in order to just sustain the music lifestyle. But I would say that my trajectory has been a very, very slow, very gradual upward grade.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was never any like big bump or anything.
Yeah.
There was never any giant windfall or like, I'm not like a famous musician, and I never got rich. But things have consistently gotten better. And so I think the key is to not quit, really. And that's the one thing I can say that I've done, is not quit.
I love everything that you just said, just across the board. I feel the same, even though I'm out here busting my ass right now. But you gotta keep things afloat before I can move forward the way I want to. So,
look, man, everyone's got to have their own path. I would never give advice to anyone, because I wouldn't have taken anybody else's advice. And some people feel really strongly about like getting married and having kids, and then that becomes their priority. And I understand that. But the musician's lifestyle is definitely not for everyone.
No.
And I think it's great, even if you decide to do music as a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
You might enjoy it more than if it's got to be your source of income, because then you're doing it kind of in a purely enjoyment based way, right, instead of because if you're a musician and you're also trying to make a living at it, then you have to constantly negotiate with yourself, like, what am I willing to do to make money? Because most of us that are musicians don't think of ourselves as just being like plumbers or just craftsmen. We take it very personally, and it's the music that we play. It has to reflect who we are as people, and there's a lot of ways you can go in music that are where it pays something, but it gives you nothing artistically, or it makes you feel gross, or it makes you feel like you've sold out, or you're cynical, or you're you've abandoned your musical values just to get some cash, and finding that balance between, well, I need money, but I also need to play music that I'm proud of and play with people that have integrity. Like, finding that balance is really the big trick thing, because I could easily play in a wedding band or something like that, and make a good living, but I would absolutely hate my life.
Sure. Absolutely. Because that would just be a paycheck. That's not something that you're passionate about, even though it's music related. It's the wrong environment.
There's people that do that, and people that do that kind of thing, and they love it, and they're happy. They're just happy to be playing music, period. So again, my path is just kind of my own unique path, and everyone else's path is going to be their unique thing. And it has to feel right, and you have to follow your heart and your instincts and all that. So anyway, I'll drop the platitudes there.
All right, last question. What's left on the bucket list?
Wait, I missed that. What's left on
the bucket list?
On the bucket list?
Yeah, on the bucket list.
Oh my God.
On your bucket
list.
Well,
believe it or not, I've never been to Japan. I would like to go to Japan. I would like to have one of my songs get picked up by somebody, get recorded by somebody who's very famous, and I can get some serious mailbox money. That would be a really great
mailbox money.
I really like the idea of mailbox money going into retirement, like where I've got a song that's just out there working hard for me. And as far as like, people I would want to play with, like, I would love to play with Mike Patton. I think that would be a really exciting, creatively fulfilling endeavor.
Right.
Other people, I always thought Bowie would have been like really the highest, as far as like having as a guitar gig. I think that would be probably maybe the pinnacle. But of course he's gone.
Yep. And
I always wanted to at least play with Motorhead for like a weekend. But sadly, that's not going to happen either.
No, unfortunately. Yeah, I could imagine that would that'd be a fun weekend.
That's all I'd be able to take. My liver wouldn't be able to handle more than a weekend. That's why I gotta stop there.
Yeah. All right. Well, I like your bucket list answers too. So I will leave it at that. And Andee, I want to thank you for your time, and I appreciate you, and appreciated the new KMFDM album. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you sometime in the near future, in the next year or two, in one of your many ventures.
Well, thank you. Are you based in Vegas?
So I just left Vegas in November. I'm in Pensacola, Florida now. And but yeah, I was in Vegas for almost 20 years. And I'm from LA originally, so kind of been all over. But
Well, stay in touch. I mean, I hope we make it back down to Pensacola. Yeah, you know, we got kind of flooded out last time we tried to play Florida. We had some hurricane interference. So, but yeah, I was actually just in Miami last weekend to play a private party, and yeah, I hope to be back down there within a year or so with one band or another.
one band or another. Okay. All right.
Well done.
Yep. All right, Andy. Yeah, I hope.
Thanks, Marcus.
Hope you come down soon, and appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
All right. Have a great night.
You too.